LoneStarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on Texas high school.
In the dynamic world of business, staying ahead of the curve is crucial. A podcast can be your golden ticket. Why, you ask? First off, it amplifies your authority. You're not just selling products or services, you're sharing knowledge and experiences. You're a thought leader, a beacon in your industry. And then there's the reach. Podcasts cross borders, time zones, and cultures. It's a global marketplace at your fingertips. Next, consider the personal connection. Your voice, your sincerity, resonating in the ears of your audience. It's intimate, it's powerful. Lastly, it's a savvy marketing move. Low cost, high impact. It's your brand's voice, literally and figuratively. So business owners, consider this. A podcast could be your next big step. It's not just about the now, it's about the future. Don't just survive, thrive. Reach out to Chris at Fresh Media Works to find out how to use podcasting to boost your business.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the 2A Ranking Show. I'm Chris Daly, joined always Coach Travis McLean. How you doing, Coach?
Oh, we're making it, man. We're making it. Kind of licking our wounds, but hey, another week, another great opportunity.
So talk about licking your wounds. How did the game go for you?
Not great. So interesting fact about Honey Grove's defense. Coming into the game, they had not given up a single point all year, and that potential record is still intact. So, and credit to Coach Fletcher and those guys over there. They have, not just a good scheme that fits their kids, but they have gotten those kids to play extremely fast and aggressive. And that confidence I think that they're playing with comes a lot to do with their comfort within the scheme. They understand the big picture and they understand where each part moves and fits within it. Mm-hmm. Which, when you get a team like that playing with that much confidence and understanding the whole picture of a defense, you're going to be able to do things like pitch 5 shutouts, 6 shutouts. So,
yeah, you remember last week I had asked if you put eyes on them, give me a report. Are they a 5-ranked team? Are they higher? Are they lower? What's your takeaway from that game?
What I took away from it is that they, there's a couple teams on our list, right? When you look at the Division I rankings, there's a couple teams on our list that, it doesn't matter who you are, what defense you run, what offense you run, they're going to be really, really good and they're going to be tough to beat. But I think Honey Grove has the kind of defense that pushes you into playing into December. Now, a lot of that is speculation, obviously, just based off of my firsthand experience. And there's different things that people might say about the other teams ranked above or just below them. But here's what I do know. In a little less than 2 weeks, they're going to play another top 10 team. Yeah. And they are going to play another top 10 team that has consistently proven to be a legitimate playoff contender. And if that defense keeps up the reputation that they've built over the first half of this season, mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the top 3. I really wouldn't.
So yeah, that matchup is Cooper, the one you're talking about, right?
Absolutely. And I say, and that's an if, right? That's not a guarantee. I mean, they're, playing Cooper. They were, kind of everything they had been advertised to be. That's a great coaching staff. That is a good football team that has senior leadership, senior experience. The only reason that they lost in the 3rd round last year is because of who they ran into, mm-hmm. right? And, that when I say that to say that, there were probably teams playing in the 4th round that Cooper was better than. They just happened to run into Timpson before somebody else did.
Got
it. But if Honey Grove goes out and plays the way that they are capable of, they're potentially capable of against Cooper, I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that you could see them jump into the top 3. It's shocking to me that there's other people in the state that closely monitor high school football that have them unranked.
I know, it's crazy.
Blows my mind.
Yeah. So let's start though with 2AD2 and we'll move up. 2AD2, not much movement. I mean, the big mover was Seymour, who went up one spot. So that tells you nobody's moving. A couple people slid one, but it was pretty static. We knew that going into it last week when we said there's not a lot of, close matchups.
Absolutely. And, it's not to sound like a broken record, but it's the same thing we've kind of repeated. The herd thins itself, and these teams are, moving up or down one spot is probably the biggest action you're going to see. And it could be, number 8 moves to number 7 one week, and then the next week they move back down to number 8, even though they won both of those games, right? They are who they are, and it's going to take some pretty big, pretty shocking events to take place for there to be any major shakeup, I think, in the D2 rankings.
Oh, for sure. What's the saying Ric Flair had? To be the man, you got to beat the man. And until these guys at the top, 3 or 4 spots get beat, they're not going anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's talk about matchups this week. I think it's another week that doesn't have any marquee games bar one, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about, the Granger Bremond game.
Yeah.
Now everything I just said, Bremond might be the caveat to that, right? They're sitting at number 11. They're 3-3, and they're about to play a 5-1 Granger team. Here's what I would say, and obviously not being close to either of these programs, just an outsider who loves the game. Mm-hmm. Even though they're ranked 10 and 11, I would say Granger has much more to lose.
Oh yeah.
In this game than Bremond. Bremond wins this game, it's an affirmation of keeping a 3-3 team at 11. Granger loses this game, it's easy to sell that as like, oh, maybe we overhyped just because they were 5-1. And so with that being said, whoever comes out on top, if Granger wins, it needs to be in convincing fashion.
Right. Yeah, and I tell you, in my calculations, I have Bremond as a favorite in this game, even though they're ranked one spot below them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, even though it's at Granger.
Yeah.
Is it at Granger? No, it's at Bremond. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that could definitely play into it for sure. So I think that, home field advantage, I think that especially in a close matchup, I definitely think that plays into it.
And district, yeah.
What would you say is the tipping point into you giving Bremont the favorite in this game?
I just like who they've played more. And again, the record doesn't match, but they've played, I think, better teams and played them better. And Granger, yes, has won, but they haven't won in the convincing fashion and haven't played, as deep a schedule yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think perfect example is you look at how easily they could be sitting at 1-0 in district into 4-2 with a Chilton game that ends in a 1-point loss.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else you see in D2?
Not in Division 2.
Cool. Well, I'm going to spin a little station identification and we'll jump over to D1.
Gridiron Warriors take the field in an epic battle that is larger than life. It is called Texas High School Football. Only one show can bring the greatest sport from the greatest state into focus. Lone Star Gridiron.
All right, time for some D1. Again, at the top of the rankings, not a lot happening, but we did have a little bit of movement. Stanford moved up 2 spots from 14 to 12, and that's really about it, other than a couple people slid down 1.
Mm-hmm. And, Honey Grove moving up 1, I would say that's a big move when you're looking at that top 7.
Oh, Yeah, anytime you're up there, that's tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Stratford slid, even though they had and I think it's more because of Honey Grove than anything. Stratford slid despite a good game against Farwell. But, Farwell is, they're not in our top 15.
Right. And obviously Honey Grove's, Rivercrest isn't either.
Right.
I think the thing that you take away from the Honey Grove game is that 0 on the scoreboard again for another consecutive week. Man, you look at like the defenses that come into mind is, that early 2000s Dangerfield defense, right?
83, yeah.
It's the 83
83
defense.
is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Right. And when you see what they give up,
8 points all year.
8 points all year, right? And I mean, obviously, that is extremely difficult to do, and I think it would be, with the style of football that's played today, it would be much more difficult. But to be in the second week of October and your defense still has not given up a point,
right?
I mean, it really doesn't matter who you play, because their defense, their offense is explosive. So you're getting into situations where the second half of games, I know that more than once, the second half of those games, they're running the clock, they're taking care of the other team, et cetera, et cetera. You're rotating in a lot of guys. And when you're getting your depth onto the field and still maintaining a shutout week after week, man, that's something special.
No, I tell you, I think the only other team I knew of in the state that had been doing that was Tidehaven. They gave up 7 points this last week. So theirs is over. And
right.
Honey Grove may be the only one that's still unscored upon.
I think so. I think you're right on that.
Yeah, and then we talked about Holland, their game against Thrall last week, that being one of the ones that looked like it might be a contest. It really wasn't. Holland rolled all over them, doubled them up 42-21. And they didn't move.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, is that you win a game by 3 possessions. The game that we identified is like, okay, this could be a marquee matchup for our top 15, and everybody else does what's expected of them. Right. And so your 21-point victory does nothing for any type of movement. It's just, It speaks to the strength of 2A Division I right now. I think that, your bell cows, your top tier teams they're there for a reason, and there's not a lot of guesswork that's going on.
Right on. So let's talk about what's coming up this week. What do you see as matchups?
Man, the game that the 2A Division I game that I'm curiously watching is Mason and Johnson City. We've talked about how the top 15 at this point in the season really start to be the top 15. Mm-hmm. Johnson City sitting in a situation where, they can beat a top 10 opponent and go to 7-1 and start looking at us like, put some respect on the name, fellas. Like, what do we got to do? Yeah. And then on the flip side, when you look at the rest of the top 10, there's not a lot of matchups where guys are going up against 6-1, 5-1, 7-0 teams. So Mason's got a chance to maybe make some waves and try and jump a spot or two if they can win in a convincing way against a 6-1 Johnson City team.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that one. The only other matchup I saw that was close was Stratford versus Panhandle. Panhandle's number 15, Stratford's number 6. It looks like it could be a close game despite that difference in the rankings.
Absolutely. And, we've touched on both of them with Panhandle, kind of sneaking in. I don't think that they started off, or even in week 1 or 2 had cracked the top 15, but right. They're poised in a situation where, you got to take care of business. Again, I think it's comparable to the Division II matchup we talked about with Granger. I think that Panhandle's got everything to win, and Stratford's got a lot to lose. So their preparation and their execution within the game could jump them to a little bit up above Toller. Okay. Mm-hmm. Or, it could put them tied with Honey Grove. But if you lose a game like this to Panhandle, I think you're going to fall to a spot that's really hard from a ranking standpoint,
Right.
which again, this is just for guys who like to talk, right? It doesn't mean anything from a playoff standpoint, but from a ranking standpoint, if you lose this game to Panhandle, you fall to a spot that you may not be able to really climb back from because of how strong the rest of that core is.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned Toller. They're going up against De Leon, 6-1 De Leon, and there are people around the state making buzz saying that, hey, this is going to be a game. I don't see this as a close game. I see this as 40, 45 point victory. I mean, I really do.
This is what I'll say, and this is not a knock on the Rattlers. I have family that are Toller Rattler alum. I have a great niece who was a 3-time state champion powerlifter for Toller. I'm a big fan of the Rattlers, but I will tell you that if Toller doesn't do that, they're going to fall to about 7 or 8, in my opinion, and they're not going to be able to. If this is a close game, if this is a 7-point game, definitely if they don't take care of it.
Right.
But if this is a 1 or 2 possession game, I think they fall behind Cooper, and I think that they're on the outside looking in of that top 5 for the rest of the year.
I agree. But again, like you said, none of that matters. We stop the polls once the playoffs starts, because otherwise we'd end up with our state champs ranked number 1.
Exactly. We look like geniuses. That last poll came out. We're like, oh, look, 1 and 2 playing for it
Every time.
Yeah.
I love it. So what's on Rivercrest agenda this week?
We are playing Alba Golden at home. This is, playing what I would consider, especially for our district, playing the Murderers Row.
Yeah.
Playing the gauntlet the past 2 weeks. This is an opportunity for our kids to get back out there and kind of clear the mechanism, move forward. This whole season has been process over product, which is tough to teach teenagers. It's hard to convince a kid not to look at the scoreboard, to not look at, how many yards, not look at any of that, to just run the play, win the 6 seconds over and over, and let the product take care of itself. But our big focus has just been reminding kids how much fun the game of football is. It's the greatest team sport that's ever been invented. It's the greatest sport, in my opinion, that's ever been invented. And it's the ultimate team sport. Because it doesn't just take all 11 on the field. It takes everybody on that sideline in some form or fashion. And the great ones, the great teams, know how to get the most out of every single person that suits up on Friday night, every single person with a headset, every single person with a trainer's fanny pack and a water cow. Every support role is done to the best of their ability. That's the great teams. And we've got, we're spending these days reminding our kids that's what we're worried about. We're not worried about X, Y, and Z and, what happens on front. We're worried about the play and being great for the play for your teammates. So Alba Golden's 5-1, 5-2 football team. That they've won a lot of games. They've scored a lot of points. And so it's going to be a great challenge that we're excited for.
Nice. Yeah, you talked about your conversations with the kids. I do a lot of coach shows where I talk to the same coach every week, and I was talking to one this week, and he said something to his kids which really stuck with me. At the beginning, when he's talking to the freshmen, he said, "You guys have 48 months of the greatest time of your life left, the most amazing stuff that you'll get to do." Then he turns to the seniors, and y'all have 4 weeks left sometimes, if you don't go to the playoffs. So that sand in your hourglass is almost out. So give everything.
Absolutely. Being at Salina, Coach Elliott, the week before the last week of summer workouts, there's always kind of that, that last day celebration, doing a great job. There's always a meeting he has with the going to be seniors because, school year hadn't started. And he says the next 20 weeks will be faster than anything has ever been in your life. And it's a lot like that sand in the hourglass. It's it sounds crazy, but because of the phase of my life that I'm in, I think it's comparable to parenting. You know, the days are long, the two-a-days aspect and the scrimmages and the summer workouts, the days are long, but the weeks and the months and the years are really fast, right? You're going to be exhausted when you go home, and you're going to go to bed at 8:00 because you're so tired, and you have to get up early to do it again. And then that's what you're going to focus on. And all of a sudden it's going to be the end of October, and you're going, oh my gosh, what happened? Where'd it go? Right. And I think the kids that can understand that and not harp on it, but just appreciate it, they're the ones that really get the most juice out of that squeeze that is their senior year.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Let us know what you think we have right, what we have wrong. If you go over to LoneStarGridiron.com, click on rankings, you can see the rankings for every class, and it's got a call-in number that you can call, and you can tell us politely, hey, you got this wrong or whatever, and we'll take a look at it, but not sure we're not promising we'll change anything.
But we will listen.
That's right. That's right. Well, Coach McLean, I want to thank you again for another great week, and look forward to talking next week.
Absolutely. And if anybody out there in Mason Puncherland wants to send me a T-shirt, one of my bucket list items at some point, I will catch a game live at the Puncher Dome. So if anybody watching is a Punchers fan and wants to see me don a shirt on one of the future shows, reach out to me and ship it my way, and we'll get it taken care of, get you on camera.
Oh, I love that, because I've been to the Puncher Dome. It's one of my favorite places. You mentioned it before we started. It's a bucket list. That's one you need to check off.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
See y'all.
Gridiron Warriors take the field in an epic battle that is larger than life. It is called Texas High School Football. Only one show can bring the greatest sport from the greatest state into focus. Lone Star Gridiron.